Do you guys know someone who kind of switches up their personality depending on who they're around? In one group, they're fully outgoing, funny, flowy, charismatic. And in another group, they just seem to kind of hush up. Now, I think all of us are this way to some degree, one way or another. And I don't think it's either of us or any of us putting on a front or intentionally trying to deceive. I think just throughout our lives, somewhere along the line, we learned that just simply being and being ourselves is just not enough. When I say not enough, that's obviously subjective. That's subjective to your own experiences and what you've been through. That enough is how you classify it. And that comes forth, that standard comes forth throughout our lives, but honestly, I think 99.9% of it comes from our childhood. When we're young, we just have such limited understanding of the world, man. What it all is, what the point of it all is, and essentially what our purpose is, which is just to live, in my humble opinion. But when you're young, because you have a limited understanding of the world, your immediate surroundings are your world. For example, if you think of a classroom, right? That kid in a classroom, that is their whole world. At least socially, where it really counts for them, you know? They care about whether they're cool in this classroom, whether they're smart in this classroom, you know, which friend groups they're a part of and whatnot. This is all it is to them at that point, because once again, they're just so young and naive. So imagine, for example, if you know someone who's shy, it could have originated from the classroom, where they could have started off very boisterous, very outgoing, very confident, and probably a bit obnoxious in reality, because they're young. And I think all kids start off to this degree before social programming comes in. So one day they're being loud and obnoxious, and the teacher just tells them, shut up, shut up. Okay, they wouldn't say shut up, but they would be like, be quiet now, in front of the whole classroom. Now this would hush up the kid, not because, you know, they're particularly respectful to authority or anything like that, but because they get scared of where they stand within the group. Because once again, when you're young, this classroom, that is your group or your tribe. So to be looked down upon or to be outcast based on one of your traits or something you've done by the leader of this group, this can hit hard for a kid who doesn't understand the world, which is all kids. It's almost like this primal act of self-preservation where you want to be accepted by the tribe in order to survive. So you better not go against it. You better be loved. And this is the sad thing about all of this, because I don't think people act in certain ways around certain people or certain groups because they want attention or they want to be cool. I simply think they just want to be accepted and to be loved. When I was younger, I used to think everyone must have been born with some sort of playbook or a guide on how to act and just be normal. And I wasn't like a particularly weird kid, but I definitely weren't like normal and chill and calm, you know? There was something off. And so I was really upset about this, and I would look to cool people to kind of figure my way around this and be like, wow, the way they're acting, that must be it. So I started taking on their personas and like I internalized it as, oh, this is how I got to act to just function in society, you know? And I think along the way, I think for a lot of people that happens in little micro ways. And then it builds up over time and becomes calloused in this mental mechanism that you can't even seem to break out of at this point. Because those people, or you, or me, you know, when we're feeling like we're acting different around different people, we know what we're doing to a degree. It's not to the point where you've calculated and you're going to act different, but you know, like, oh damn, why can't I speak and flow? Why do I feel so tensed up and hushed? And it's very upsetting, and it's very interesting because it's your body protecting itself from a perceived threat of being outcast from your group. But now at this point, as you get older and once you understand the world, it still remains. And this, even at the start, it didn't serve you, but now it no longer serves you to an even greater degree. It hushes you up and doesn't allow your true self to come through. And I think this is a damn shame. Because it's almost like through the formation of a society, we have these rules in place and ways to act which now hush up people. And obviously I think this is important. A society without rules would just lead to a bunch of animals running around causing a ruckus. But it's almost like a lot of us have overcorrected due to the intensity of social media, marketing, and different agendas of people in the world that have been implored upon us. So now it's not simply just self-preservation, it's a full front, it's a full act to be perceived in a way you think is beneficial for you to exist and be accepted and loved. And the real shame is because the intention here is to be loved and to be accepted, not to seek attention. But in the pursuit of that, you push people infinitely further away. Because people aren't connecting with you anymore. They're connecting with a front, essentially. Something you've put up, something that's been calloused over years, something that's not even close to an honest representation of who you are at your core. So people don't know you, and even if people do love you, they're loving a front that you've put up. It's similar to like movie stars, for example. One that comes to mind is good old Tobey Maguire, the original and my personal favorite Spider-Man. Now, with Tobey Maguire, if you followed his career somewhat, you know that after Spider-Man, it was kind of a downhill road for him, from what I understand. I don't know too much. I know he had other roles. But essentially, he had trouble because he was now Spider-Man. And people only really loved him for being Spider-Man. Any other role he would try for, there was always a disconnect because people would see him as Spider-Man. And so this became really crushing for him where, and I think this is crushing for a lot of celebrities, where they're only really loving your front. They love you as Spider-Man. They love you as, you know, the pop star. They love you as the social media influencer. They don't love you. And I think this is really damaging if you have the wrong mindset about it. And if you take that validation in and help that fuel your being, you're running on fumes of falsity at the end of the day. And that catches up with you super duper quickly to a point where it can crush your whole reality after a while. And it's such a damn shame because you can especially see it in like, you know, child actors, like kids who are famous as actors, where now you can see where they are in life. They're hooked on drugs, alcohol, and they're just struggling mentally because they internalize this as love and people put them on this microscope watching their every move. I can't even imagine how exhausting it is to be famous. And of course we feel bad for the actors, but we ourselves, we are also acting and on different levels. It's something we all need to fight because the fact that we are in a society that has these different social rules means that all of us have this ability to overcorrect and let it impede our social ability to thrive and function, you know? I've been recently thinking about how I used to be when I was super duper young, like 5 years old, that kind of thing. I can barely remember it, but I just remember being so uninhibited. And I think that's every damn kid, you know? Before the world comes in and puts its different agendas on us, good and bad. And either way, it's manipulation in one way or another. But we were so uninhibited as children, weren't we? We could be obnoxious, we could be loud, we could say whatever the hell we want. You could probably pop a lot of kids up in front of a stage at a seminar and they would do phenomenally. Obviously, what they'd had to say probably wouldn't be of that much value, but just the energy, they'd be able to deliver something. A lot of us, if we could get forced up in front of a stage right now, I reckon half of us would freeze the hell up. So it goes to show how much impact this really has over time. Because no one teaches kids how to perform. All they do is teach kids how to edit. Like in school, when your teacher tells you be quiet, that gets imprinted, and that becomes an editing mechanism that can, if you don't work on it, can end up carrying you throughout life. So now the question is, how the fuck do we stop this? How the hell do we actually allow our real selves to come through? And I don't think the goal here is to become more charismatic, more confident, or more cool, or whatever it is. I think that's also another front. The goal here is to just be okay with yourself. Feel comfortable in your own skin. And I think the best way to do this is just to understand this one important question. One question you need to ask yourself pretty consistently. Who am I trying to be right now? Anytime you're in an interaction and you feel that kind of hushed up, tense energy coming through and you can't say what you want or can't act how you want and you're micromanaging yourself, take a step back to ask, am I here right now? What am I trying to do? And often what you'll find is this hushed up energy is because you're trying to keep up a front in order to please someone. Whether it's to gain an approval of someone you perceive to be of higher status than you, whether you're trying to maintain an image for your parents or your friends, it's that kind of thing. You really need to hone in on this because there's a mental mechanism to have an outward look and perspective of what it is makes it so much weaker because you can see it. It's no longer that these thoughts are me. It's like, oh, what the hell? What are these thoughts doing to me? And once you can see that, you can slowly start dissolving away from this front and this persona that's been running you for so very long. So I implore you all just to continually ask yourself, who am I being right now? Am I here right now? Is this me? Am I putting up a front? And just bring that into your awareness because that's the first step to freedom.